We can just think of YouTube as like a channel in and of itself, a platform in and of itself, and how can we create content that drives results for our business on that. I think most companies have treated YouTube as a like video repository. Your job is to get them to click. That's an art and a science. We should start thinking of YouTube like we think of Netflix. People are watching YouTube in their living rooms on their big screen TVs. YouTube is TV.
How did you move your network onto YouTube?
Audio podcast listeners and YouTube viewers are not the same people. YouTube is a platform that's gonna serve the content up. The beautiful thing is they're gonna push it to people who have never heard of you before. That doesn't happen in audio podcast platforms. If you boost content that is not effective, you're wasting your money.
Hey friend, welcome to this week's episode of Distribution First. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. Got my buddy Eric on from Hatch, and we're gonna just basically, I'm thinking of this one as like YouTube crash course learnings, like what's going on in B2B YouTube, why we should be thinking about it, how we can do it better. For those of you who are listening or watching, maybe you're watching this episode right now. I started my YouTube journey this year, finally, after putting out 100 episodes of my podcast. I finally got those on YouTube. So I'm learning a ton as well. So Eric, welcome on. I'm absolutely pumped to jam on this.
Likewise, Justin. Appreciate you, man. Yeah, we've obviously known each other for a long time, worked together, and yeah, it's definitely due for us to do like a podcast episode together.
Yeah, it's kind of unbelievable that we haven't. Like, shame on me in a lot of ways.
Me too. We just had to memorialize our conversations and stuff. So,
yeah. Absolutely. So, yeah. So, I mean, so talk to me a little bit, because obviously, for anybody who doesn't know, Eric runs Hatch, his podcast, marketing video first agency, has helped me publish this podcast since its inception. But really over the last, you tell me, like year, 2 years, like really evolving from podcasting into video and YouTube.
Yep.
So maybe talk to me about your sort of like, because you were ahead of the game. I think now it's starting to catch up for these companies to do YouTube and podcast, and YouTube's explosion into the podcast game.
yes.
So maybe just kind of talk to me about that.
Yeah. Basically, I've just kind of followed where I think things are going to be in like 2 years, 3 years from now. And so 3 or 4 years ago or 5 years ago, that was podcasting for B2B, just in general. And then now, as that medium has evolved over that time and just content has evolved, I think that opportunity, which is still very large with just podcasting in general, but now it's like there's also a big opportunity for just the YouTube platform in general. And podcast is one piece of that. But then we can just think of YouTube as like a channel in and of itself, a platform in and of itself. And how can we create content that drives results for our business on that? What formats, what approaches, organic, some paid, maybe some combination, all of those things. And so I've been really like trying to learn about that, because I see it as a channel or a strategy in B2B that's one of the few remaining somewhat blue oceans, like, and just in terms of competition. LinkedIn, everybody should be there. Great channel, very competitive though, and getting more competitive. Newsletters, blogs, written, all of that stuff, same thing. There's very few B2B companies competing for the attention of that ICP on YouTube. And so I just see like the supply demand arbitrage, I think, exists on YouTube in a larger degree than most other levers you can pull right now. And one of the reasons for that is because YouTube's hard. And so like people are scared of it, to be honest with you. And there's good reason for that. And so, yeah, I've just been trying to really try to just, crack those codes and like figure out what's working there. And because this is absolutely going to happen. B2B is going to move into YouTube. It's absolutely going to happen. It's just a matter of who gets in first, who does it best, all the same stuff with every other channel and content platform. So
why do you think, because I agree, YouTube is hard, and I think there are a myriad of reasons, but when you say that, what's top of mind in your head of like, YouTube is super hard for these B2B companies?
I think most companies have treated YouTube as a like video repository pretty much, where it's like the success was creating the recording.
Mm,
And then YouTube will just do the work for us once we get the recording up on YouTube. But YouTube tactics and strategy really in a big way is like 50% or more what you do after the recording
mm,
on the platform. And I think that's where like it's unknown. It's like what should our packaging be? What should our hooks be? What should our description be? What should our CTAs be? What should like how should we what should our cadence be? What should our channel name be? What should our headline be? All these things like really, really, really matter. But I've found that there's not been a lot of thought put into those. And there's honestly not a lot of information, I think, for B2B. There's a lot of creators on the platform, and there's D2C companies and influencers and stuff who are doing really well. They're really good at getting attention, but they don't teach the business application of it. And so
mm.
honestly, I just think there's like a lack of information out there for content marketers at B2B companies or content leaders to really know how to approach it. And so, I'll give an example. Like one of the most important things you can do, and it seems kind of funny, is just like the thumbnail. The thumbnail of your YouTube video. Like you could argue you should spend more time on that than you did creating the content itself.
I would argue, yeah.
Yeah.
Title and thumbnail.
Title and thumbnail, like getting people to click it, because YouTube is a platform that's going to serve the content up. The beautiful thing is they're going to push it to people who have never heard of you before. That doesn't happen in with audio podcast platforms. So your job is to get them to click. And that's an art and a science. And most people are just like, yeah, just throw up a thumbnail. Like, it's like just the afterthought. But like literally there are people who spend their lives dedicated to creating thumbnails that get people to click. And then you need your video to deliver on the promise, of course. You don't want to clickbait people, because then they're just never going to return or never subscribe and stuff. But that's just a small little example of like, you could legitimately spend 2 days working on your thumbnail. And you spent, and creating like 10 different versions, because in YouTube, you can actually upload 2 or 3 versions when you hit publish on your video, and then they will send that. They'll do an ABC test for you. And so they'll send each of those out to different audiences. You see which one has the highest click through, and then you can use that and just say, cool, apply this one to everybody. But like, it's just there's just a whole game there. With it's like a platform tactic, basically, platform expertise. And I think that those are the kind of things that scare people off from it, is like, do I really need to spend 4 hours on this thumbnail? And so big lift, but big reward, I think, is available there.
The funny thing, so I've been working full time with a company since about September, and we went in with a video first YouTube strategy. Like we're gonna move away from traditional blogs and SEO, and we're gonna move in and we're gonna like hire a videographer, come in, do all this stuff. It's been so fun as a content marketer. Like the most fun I've had creating content in a long time in an industry that you would say is pretty boring. To be honest, it's not SaaS. But the funny thing about YouTube and content as I'm working with the team is YouTube is like an S tier channel for content. Like
Yes.
if you can figure out how to create content well for YouTube,
Yes.
all of your other content will be better, because you have to think about the psychological principles that go into creating content in a way that's just, which you probably should be doing for other channels, but can get away with not doing on those channels. I don't have to think as hard on LinkedIn, or even if I was just like dropping a podcast into the feed, like the title is whatever, I can't really tell if somebody clicks on it. YouTube, I call like YouTube content no mercy content. That's what I've been calling it,
Yes.
because you can get into those analytics. And I just had a short go out for the podcast earlier in the week, and it's like a few hundred views. So like the algorithm actually took it, which is, cool. But then it's like 2 likes, 3 dislikes, and you're like a 40% like rate. I'm like, well, okay, that clip did not work. Let's figure out why.
Yes.
And like, but you don't get that data in a LinkedIn. You don't get that data on your blog in Google Analytics. You get cool, somebody clicked it and viewed it, but in YouTube, you get swipe rate on a short. You get view duration across your video. Like, we've been able to see exactly when somebody drops off that video and what they said.
Yes.
And then it becomes so much clearer. So like I think and that's why I call it like that S tier type content, because if you can figure out what makes good content for YouTube, all of those learnings will make your emails better, your LinkedIn content better, your podcast better, etc.
100%. It's one of the main reasons I love I love the channel for a lot of reasons, but that's one of them, is like the data informed decisions you can make. And that's what I've been in the podcast game for 7 or 8 years. And that's one of the most challenging parts about it, is like Apple and Spotify is actually getting a little bit better now, to be honest. They are providing some more metrics with just your audio listeners who listen on Spotify. Those metrics are actually getting a little bit better, but it's just been really hard to figure out, like, what decisions can I make to improve this content for this audience based on data. That's been really hard for podcasts, over the last 8 years. And with YouTube, they just arm you with so much more, because they want more people to spend more time on the platform. And that didn't really exist with audio podcasts, because like Apple created it and they just have not cared about podcasts. They don't care how many people listen to podcasts. They literally don't care. Spotify does, so that's why they're kind of pushing it. But YouTube really does. So they want to arm you with more information to get your people to watch for longer, so that they can be on YouTube longer, so they can monetize that ad revenue at a higher rate. So it's helpful. It's very helpful stuff to be able to make these like 20 decisions that are small, but then have the outlier impact, over your next month's worth of videos and years worth of videos.
Yeah, and it makes sense too from a podcast like YouTube. It's since I started Distribution First, has completely, gotten way more robust in how they do podcasting. Like, I just uploaded my backlog of all. So like, for anybody listening, like, you can upload your backlog of just audio only if you just want to say, hey, I want to get my podcast on YouTube and into Apple and into YouTube Music. All you have to do is put your RSS feed in on a verified channel, and it will run through and pick up all your audio, all your descriptions, all your links. It's amazing. It does it automatically.
Everybody should do that. YouTube, people don't think of it this way. YouTube is essentially the #1 podcast consumption platform in the world. Like 1 billion people last month consumed podcast content on YouTube. Every single demographic, like when we talk about Gen Z, millennials, like all the way up, through, I forget all the, categories, whatever, but like every age group consumes podcast content every single week. So a lot of people, I think some people think of like Mr. Beast and like just like 13-year-olds and stuff. That's like the that's like the prior version mindset of YouTube, similar to the prior version mindset of TikTok. Everybody thinking people are just dancing on TikTok and stuff. Like, that's not the case anymore. And YouTube is basically an aggregator of every format of video content people are interested in. And one of the biggest ones they've realized is over the last 5 years is podcasts. And so they're serving podcast content and catering to podcast content much more, than ever before. And people are using it to listen. That they'll listen. So sometimes there's different use cases. People consume it different ways. Like even just putting your audio content on YouTube, I actually think is a good play because like people don't always sit and watch.
Mhm.
Like even me, if I'm consuming a video podcast on YouTube, a lot of times I'll be out doing stuff and I'll just like be listening to it. But then when I get a sec, I might like just watch it for a little bit and then go back to just listening and switch back and forth. And so, yeah, there's just so many different use cases for people on how they use it. And it gives you just so many more opportunities to get in front of them.
Yeah, and it makes sense too from like just a content consumption perspective of if you're putting up a 30 to 50-minute video, I mean, generally, right? Like we can understand not everybody's going to watch all the way through, et cetera, et cetera. But like if you get a third of that view, you're getting an average 10-minute watch rate. You're getting people on for 10 minutes versus if you spend all this time to create a 3-minute video, you have to get people to watch that 3-minute video like all the way through. So just like the consumption and watch time, I think for people to understand part of the reasons why podcasts are an interesting medium for YouTube is because by the nature of what they are, they're going to keep people longer.
Exactly. And the data shows this. So like we should start thinking of YouTube like we think of Netflix. People are watching YouTube in their living rooms on their big screen TVs. YouTube is TV.
Mhm.
Like that's how we should think about it as marketers now. And so it's like we should create a TV show for our market in whatever form that could be. That could be an interview-based thing. That could be go out and like create something super unique in the real world and like a series or whatever. Or it could be how-to educational videos on like something that will improve, how they approach their profession. But more people are consuming YouTube than Netflix, than Amazon Prime, than Disney. Like all the major streaming platforms, more people are consuming YouTube channels and YouTube content than all of those. And a lot of them are doing it in their living room like a TV show. So, I just think that's a really powerful thing to like think about for the future. And this is similar to how I viewed podcasting 10 years ago, is just how powerful that medium is. And now we see, like the world's most influential people in every category: entertainment, politics, business. The most interesting pieces of content that those people are creating now as a guest or a host are usually now taking place on podcasts. And so that has played out. And I think the same thing's going to play out with the new TV, basically, which I think for better or for worse, some people don't like it. Some people do, but we just have to acknowledge it. This is happening in a large way with YouTube. And so we should just keep that in mind with like how we're approaching our content strategy. Cause like I said, I still think it's super early. Like if you're selling to finance professionals, I guarantee there's not many YouTube channels catering to that demographic, but there's a lot of them that are consuming content on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much every category, chief information security officers, HR professionals, obviously marketers, salespeople, go up and down the line. I mean, it's the number 2 social media platform in the world. So like, yeah, there's just so many benefits to it. And I think you can just get started with like, I think it also can feel a little bit scary just because like there's so many things that you could do with it.
Mm-hmm.
There's almost unlimited like options on how you could approach it. So I like the idea of just stair-stepping it. Like start with something that's sustainable and manageable and differentiated. And even if that's a once a month thing, but you just put your all into that once a month. And it's just a single format once a month. And then you could stair step it to, okay, we got that down. Let's do it twice a month. And then maybe, all right, cool, we got this. What's another content format we could add to the channel? And so not trying to bite it all off at once, because it's so hard to do, 7 different approaches like all at the same time.
It's impossible.
It's impossible.
It's impossible especially for a team who's trying to like figure this out on their own. Like, even if you're hiring experts to come in and help you and consult or produce some things, like you still have to figure it out. Like,
Yep.
I'm living that firsthand, both, with the company I'm working with and with my own channel. It's just like, if you try to do too many things at once, it's going to be so overwhelming. Like, I think the point you made about like stair-stepping, part of that initial stairs is not even like production of the content. It's literally learning the channel.
Yep.
And like learning how, like,
Yep.
what makes a good title, what makes a good thumbnail, all those type of things. Like, literally, it's funny you mentioned the thumbnails earlier, and I got to circle back to it. Like, I took our graphic designer who was like building web pages and all those things, bought him $100 course on YouTube thumbnails and said, this is part of your job now.
Love it.
Right? Like, are you interested in doing this? Like, is this something? And he's like, yes, I want to help like grow our channel. And like, it's night and day different. Like,
Yes.
it makes such an impact on the feel of the channel, how it, professional it looks. And, you can tell it's not just a Canva, like Canva is great, but like, it's not just a Canva template slapped together.
Exactly. Yeah. And, like the difference between, a 7% click-through rate on like people who get served that video and they see the thumbnail and then they click, like that's the click-through rate, and a 2% click-through rate, like, is the difference between 100x the result over time. Literally, like these small, or even 7% and 4%, like small difference in click-through rate can be 100x the result of the performance of that video. And so, yeah, it's just like those details matter pretty much.
Eric, let me ask you, because I think where I'm like really thinking where one of the struggles for folks is with podcasting and YouTube,
Mhm.
especially in the B2B context, is like effort to ROI output, right?
Mm.
Like, I'm putting all this time and effort into making a podcast, and we're putting it on YouTube, and we're getting 10 views on it. Like, at the beginning, is that good? Like, how do you advise your clients, or as people are talking through, or as you're building these shows, like, how do you think through like the metric side versus like the thought leadership that, we're getting people to know, like, and trust us, the true marketing side? Like, how do you balance those?
Yeah, this is good. Number one, we have to we had the starting point for that is, how big is our TAM? If there's only 2,000 potential buyers in our market, then getting 200 views of our podcast that our channel is only designed for those people, we've just captured 10% of our market consuming our content. That is incredible. So like, we have to remember, because like our videos are going to be next to videos that have 500,000 views. And so it's very easy if we don't set that context of like, what actually is our audience TAM? Is our audience TAM 10,000 people, 1,000 people, 20,000, what have you? It's very likely not 1 million in B2B.
Mm-hmm.
So number one, we have to contextualize, what does success look like as a percentage basis in relation to the legitimate amount of people that could ever be interested, that we want to be interested in this. So that you don't feel bad if your video gets 250 views. You actually are like, wow, this is great. We've got 15% of our market who's paying attention to our video content. So that's number one. Then number two, sometimes there are people who wonder, is it worth putting my podcast content on YouTube? Because like, it only gets 100 views, or what have you. And at least as a starting point, even before you go YouTube platform tactics and go super hardcore on it, literally just putting your video, like you've already recording the video of the podcast. If you put that video on YouTube and you try to do something as best you can with the thumbnail and the packaging and stuff, and your audio podcast has 200 listeners per episode, and now your YouTube video episode is getting 100 viewers per episode, you've just created a 50% increase in the total audience of your content simply by just basically putting it on the platform. Like, so let's give ourselves that advantage. And the beautiful thing is, audio podcast listeners and YouTube viewers are not the same people most often. So now you're not just like, they're not just kind of switching between listening on Spotify and YouTube like the same people. That's 50% increase with new people who are the right audience. And YouTube pushed it for you. You didn't have to go, bleed to go get them, pretty much. So like, that's just easy step one. Let's just increase by 50% our audience. Because a lot of questions is always like, how do I grow my podcast? Well, number one, just put it on YouTube, and probably YouTube will, with just minimal execution, just step one, phase one, increase your audience by a pretty healthy percentage. And then number three is like the platform tactics, all that stuff. We could talk for hours about, there's literally people who devote their life to YouTube platform tactics, but you can go MVP version of that. You can go super hard on that, but essentially trying to get the organic videos to get more momentum on their own. But then number four, and this is one of the reasons I really like YouTube for B2B, like the last step here, is that for a very small amount of paid, like literally $5 to $10 per day per video, your video can get recommended to the right audience and served to them. So you could say, this YouTube video that's a podcast episode, or this like 12-minute YouTube video on how CFOs can do XYZ, and you sell to CFOs. And that's like a 12-minute video breaking down something that's helpful to them and highlighting your expertise. And oh, by the way, naturally creating demand for your platform for CFOs. When that audience opens up their YouTube app, that video is now going to appear as a recommended video with guarantee, because you paid $5 per day for it to be on their homepage. Or on the sidebar, when they're watching a different video, it's now going to be on the sidebar. And so the performance of that video can effectively be guaranteed to get to the right audience with a small amount of paid. On LinkedIn, the paid you usually have to do is much higher because the targeting is much better and there's more competition for paid. On YouTube, that's not the case. And so you can use or an organic plus paid hybrid really effectively on YouTube. And a lot of creators don't have that advantage. They have to play on hard mode, quote unquote, like pure organic. We just got to get the algorithm and we got to get the YouTube platform tactics to work, because creators usually don't have the budget to really apply a lot of paid to, but we're selling 5 or 6 figure ACV deals, and it's pretty nominal to apply a little bit of boosted paid on top of the organic, not direct response ads that play as a pre-roll before a YouTube video, like saying, click here to go to our website. I'm talking about putting paid on top of the actual organic video.
What does that look like, Eric, within the platform? Like, is that a setting within the videos, or is there an ad manager within YouTube that I'm picking a particular type of ad that I want to recommend this video?
Yeah.
No.
So you can go back into your YouTube Studio Manager, and there's like where you upload your videos and like where you see all your analytics, and you can actually boost, like there's a paid boost in that dashboard. I don't necessarily recommend that one. That one gives you much less control over what audiences it goes to. It will just sort of, so it'll say like, if you put $25 boost on this video, we guarantee it'll go to 1,000 people. What we guarantee it'll get 1,000 views. Actually, so not just serving it to, they're not just guaranteeing the serving, they're guaranteeing the view. The problem with that one though is it doesn't let you target very specific. It's just like whatever the algorithm thinks it should go, it will do. So I recommend actually going into your Google, like it's a Google ad product. So you go into Google ad, the Google ad platform, similar to how you would do Google PPC and search, and there you can upload a customer list, like your newsletter, or you could say anybody who subscribes to these YouTube channels, these are the people I want to serve this to. So if you could go look and find the 10 other channels that talk about finance related topics and say, if anybody subscribes to those, these are the exact people I want this video to get served to. Or you could say, if anybody visits these websites, it could be competitor websites, it could be your website, it could be anything related to that industry that you think your ICP would be visiting. Anybody who visits those websites, I want my video to get in front of them when they open up YouTube. So you got a little more, you can't target it like LinkedIn where it's like literally uploading sales nav, lead list. So it's not as one-to-one, but the more data YouTube gets on who is viewing your videos, the smarter the algorithm gets to push it to the right people. And so then you can do the targeting that it gives you, but then also it's just making your channel, like all the right people clicking on your videos is telling YouTube as time goes on who to push it to organically. So it's like this nice, it's this nice just feedback. It's this nice flywheel basically. And same thing, if you push a YouTube video in your newsletter, like click here to watch our YouTube video. Everybody who clicks on that, YouTube now knows these are the type of people. So like you're in your newsletter, if you can get people to click on your YouTube video, if you can get people to click on your YouTube video anywhere outside of YouTube and then bring them in, that's just giving giving YouTube more data on who the right people are for your channel. So I think there's an advantage in B2B because there can be budget to apply a little bit of smart boosted paid on top of the organic.
I love that. I had James Carberry on from Sweetfish a couple weeks ago. We were just jamming on paid and how to use paid and how it essentially just boosts what content marketers I think organically struggle with in terms of just like the time to value ratio of like organic is just that time to value ratio is months, if not years. And so if we can in B2B spend a little put behind it to start to get some of those signals or start to see that, I think that's really intriguing. Even, I mean, I'm curious, like, have you been doing this for your podcast or I'm assuming you're doing it for clients, but like, to try to grow that at all?
Yeah. So we don't handle it directly for clients. We kind of, we handle the production and then we do like consultation basically.
Okay.
So yeah, some are doing it, some are not, it's like anything with tactics. I think in B2B, it's, some people, are used to just the way things are done. Other people have a little more experimentation. So for my channel and how I actually recommend this is I do think you need to get the organic to work to some degree first. And just to some degree, like some indication that this is working. Like, and my channel, I have gotten momentum with it, but I want it to be a little bit more before I apply this on top. And the reason for that is if you boost content that is not effective, then you're wasting your money. And so like, I want the audience to tell me this content is resonating before I apply paid on top of it.
Is there a number you're kind of thinking through for that, like views per video, or by the time we hit, I'm starting to get X number of,
That's basically it. So it's like the month over month increase, essentially. What I want to see is like the audience is growing, the consumption is growing on its own, organically, and feedback also, like unsolicited responses, essentially comments or emails, stuff like that. Because I do genuinely believe in like the process of iteration with content to like your first assumption of what the content should be usually is not where it ends up 3 months or 6 months later if you're hopefully like taking the process of constant iteration based on feedback, based on response, lack of response, what have you. And so then, yeah, applying this on top of that, once that's, and I don't think you need to wait a year or, whatever, like you should be able to see some of this, progress and momentum over a few months. And also you will know which ones to do it on more, the more times you've posted. So like some will pop off more than others organically. And say your average video gets 500 views and you've got one now that just got 3,000. And that one actually also helps create demand for your company because the stuff that you're talking about in it is related to the problems that your company solves. That's a very perfect example of one to do this on.
Got you. So then you would put some paid behind that one that took off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even extracting out like a 7-minute segment from an episode that you got, you realize like you've heard feedback like this segment really resonated. Like I did a live session with Chris Walker, and we did a podcast episode, but there was like an 8-minute section in there where we talked about the content team structure. That like here's a really good approach to the content team structure, these 3 roles. And during the live session with the audience, people were like just hitting up the chat about it, and they really liked it. They're asking more about it. I then did a post about it on LinkedIn. Same thing, just a lot of good response. So instead of that being now hidden inside this 60-minute episode, I can also extract that and have that be a standalone video on YouTube itself as a quote unquote like mid-form video. So not a short form, not a long form, but like a mid-form. And that's another good one, just that independent piece of extracted content to apply paid to. Because I know the audience has already told me it resonates. And that particular segment in particular, like, is a natural evolution to what Hatch solves as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
What did you do? Or did you launch, when you launched your podcast, did you launch it on YouTube to start? Okay. And then how did you move your network onto YouTube?
I didn't.
Okay.
This is why I like YouTube. So like,
yeah, that's cool.
I look at, for my podcast, I look at the LinkedIn audience as my shadow subscribers. I don't look at them as I'm going to convert my LinkedIn audience to Spotify or YouTube. I just look at them as like, I want these people on LinkedIn to be my shadow subscribers and get the content from the podcast without ever having to leave LinkedIn. Some of them will. I have not seen great data that like it's a meaningful percentage to drive long form viewers or subscribers from short form. So I like to just think of it that way. Cool. LinkedIn is by itself. They're going to be subscribers of the podcast, even though they don't think of themselves like that, but they're my LinkedIn subscribers. Same thing with audio. Like that's an independent channel. Those are audio people, and they subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, and what have you. And then YouTube, like I learned this early with YouTube, that it's a completely different audience. And like I started uploading, but I optimized my channel. I optimized the packaging, and I changed how I would title episodes and I would change my intros and stuff. So the same exact episode on Spotify is different on YouTube. Slight differences. Like the content is the same, but how I've kind of optimized is different. And YouTube would say, we sent this video to 5,000 people on YouTube. They just did that. Like they just pushed that video in front of 5,000 people on YouTube, and then 5% would click through, and then I would get views from that. And so they were doing the work for me because YouTube serves the content, like, whereas Spotify does not.
And you can see that number of, like, I guess that would be impressions. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, and it was essentially just a funnel. So they would serve it to 5,000 people, 5% would click through. And like my job then was, I want to now grow those numbers on YouTube and start experimenting with how to do that, but not think of what I'm doing in relation to Spotify or LinkedIn as going to have that effect on what's happening on YouTube. Each one is isolated strategy, using the same pillar piece of content, but not just uploading it to each platform. Like LinkedIn has a specific way you should approach your short form videos from your podcast. And audio listeners on Spotify have a different use case as well. So you can use the same pillar, but you should apply platform tactics with 20% modification or what have you. And this is stuff you champion all the time. Like this is the Justin playbook.
Yeah, man. This is it.
But I've seen that play out, and it's and you will be rewarded from the platforms for giving the platform the optimized version of what they're looking for.
Yeah, it's why it's so key in the distribution first framework and a lot of things I teach about, like, picking those 1 to 2 channels to start, because if you are trying to do all of those things at once, just naturally none of them will be good enough.
Yep.
Frankly, like your LinkedIn content won't be good enough, your emails won't be good enough. I've even just seen that as people try to scale up even the number, right? Like I'm gonna go 5 days a week. I'm going to go, and it's like, okay, can you do 5 days a week? Like, let's maybe do those 2 days a week. Let's do 2 videos, shorts off of those videos, and make sure the content's well produced and well written and all that sort of thing, because LinkedIn wants that. And then even as those channels change, like LinkedIn added a video feed, but it's different than YouTube's video feed, and it's not the best experience, like. So, like, do we go all in with video, or like it's very, very interesting just to see how these things evolve and change. But yes, like you said, that 20-30% iteration makes all the difference, and it's understanding how those things really make a dramatic, in some cases, change in how somebody consumes that content, right? Like I've even thought about this in as I've experimented of adding the podcast onto YouTube, is like, okay, I probably do have to do some lighter editing at the front end than just like, hey, welcome to Distribution First. This is the show where we say, whatever. Like, whereas for a podcast and people who are listening, like, okay, let's just get into the show. Let's, do the intro. We're going to, and just start chatting. It's a 20% difference, but it's a different.
Yes. Because when they're on Spotify, they've clicked on the podcast and they're not being pulled to other content on the platform every second.
That's a great point.
Click off, click off, click off, click off. That's what YouTube is telling somebody when they're watching your video. So you've got very minimal time to deliver on the promise that you promised in the title and the thumbnail. And the more people, like, especially for I'm talking about new people, like you will have people who then become subscribers and they're like, cool, I know Justin, like his episode's going to deliver. I'm not clicking off, but what we want to do is use YouTube to acquire new audience members, because that's one of the best things that it's designed for. And so we need to optimize our experience for people who have clicked on your video for the very first time. and they don't know anything about you. All they know is they want to learn something you promised.
Mm-hmm.
And is it going to take them 23 minutes to finally get to a piece? They're going to be gone. They're going to be gone in 2 minutes. But with Spotify, it's harder to get somebody to click because there's no algorithmic push getting your content in front of them. But once you've figured out how to get somebody on Spotify to click, they usually give you much more leeway. And like, it's a little bit more of like that friendship type relationship where you've got a little more time
Mm-hmm.
to prove value with it before they click off. So
Think
just
that-
slight differences. Yeah, just
Yeah.
platform differences.
It's also just like the expectation, because it's funny. I listen to certain podcasts only on Spotify, and I watch and listen to other podcasts on YouTube.
Yes.
It's just like, you know, how that works, and I don't know why. Like, psychologically, there's something interesting about why I do that. But yeah, like the idea of, I'm not sure anybody who's just browsing generally is like I'm not browsing and really interested in listening to a 52-minute podcast.
Exactly.
Just as I'm browsing my feed in YouTube. But that doesn't mean if there is something that I'm really interested in that I won't like click watch later, or just be like, oh yeah, I do want to watch that, or that it keeps, like, there's been several ones where it just keeps serving it up and eventually I'll watch it,
Yeah.
or I'll go back, right? And so I think that's the interesting thing too about YouTube, is just the ability to, again, let the platform do what the platform was designed to, which is serve it up to people to try to see, which Apple and Spotify just, again, Spotify is doing a little bit more. I'm even noticing recently, like,
They
to
are.
recommend different shows and try to like do some stuff, but like it's nowhere near to where Apple, or nowhere near where YouTube is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just like you can become undeniable, like similar to like a podcast guesting strategy. So one way to get in front of your market on podcasts is to have your own, but also to go be a guest on the 75 podcasts that talk to, are for whoever you're at, marketers, HR, finance, what have you. And the goal there being, anytime someone opens up a podcast, the 4 that they listen to in your category, your name appears. You're everywhere. They cannot get away from you. That can exist with YouTube too. So cool, they're not going to click on the first one, but I'm going to get you on the 7th because I'm going to keep posting. I'm going to keep figuring this out. And eventually, like you said, you just become undeniable, an undeniable entity that's publishing content for that market. But on the flip side, there are case studies of creators on YouTube that post a video once per year. And it absolutely crushes because they've just optimized every single thing. Like, so I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it, I guess is what I'm saying. But I think just being intentional about, like, we can't just throw up a video here and repurpose it and have no intention behind it. Like, I would rather you post one video that you worked really hard on once every quarter. And I have a feeling that will perform very, very well. And because you put everything into it, rather than posting a video once per week that's just thrown up, a webinar repurposed recording that you don't really do much for and it's not optimized.
Absolutely. And that's maybe a great point to like pivot, because I really want to get like practical and tactical with some of the things I've learned, some of the things you've learned on like how to do things. So I want to use that webinar example, because in my head, like, webinars can be much like a podcast, could be a terrific avenue to post on YouTube. There, you can provide a lot of value. They can be well executed from a post-production standpoint if you set them up right. But I think that is the key of knowing what the end goal is for that webinar. If you know it's going to go on YouTube, I mean, production-wise, I think honestly, like, people are pretty forgiving if the information's valuable, from a production standpoint, and if it helps them solve those things. But I think that's the key. That's the thing I've learned, is like, title, thumbnail come before you even start producing that thing. So if you're going to create, like, I've started to think about this even with my podcast of like, all right, before I have Eric come on, like, what are the 5 titles that I really think could be interesting for the conversation that I want to have with Eric? How does that frame up some of the questions I might ask, some of the conversations I think we're going to have? What do I think the thumbnail, my thumbnails are pretty standard, but what do I think the thumbnail will look like? And then how does that then deliver on that promise? So if you're doing a webinar before, as you're starting to think about creating it, I would say do the same thing. If you want to put this on YouTube, or if you want to put it on your website, just do that. Like, but what is the title? What are the 5, the potential 5 titles? And then what is your thumbnail? What is the graphic? And then how do you deliver on that as quickly as possible?
100%. And that webinar can serve as the content pillar for each platform, like we talked about. Can a LinkedIn part of it, a LinkedIn distribution point, audio podcast distribution point, a YouTube. But to your point, it's like, let's map out. Essentially, what we need to first map out is, what do we want people to walk away from this piece of content being able to say, I can now do, or my behavior is going to change. I believe one of the best ways we can think about content is like, are we able to change the behavior of the person consuming this content by what we've taught them? If we have, and if we can, we have succeeded. But if theories are great, philosophy is great, all of that stuff can expand your mind. But if it's not changing the behavior, we can probably do better. And so to your point, yeah, I love that framing of it, is like, let's go into planning that recording, that session, with that stuff in mind. What do we want people to walk away from? And then you can retitle and repackage it. Okay, cool. For YouTube, this is how we would package it. For our short form videos, we want to get like 3 90-second clips with like these data points and these takeaways. And then for the audio podcast, here's how we would want to, tee that up. Rather than just kind of checking the box of like, cool, all right, let's do a webinar. We'll have somebody talk about some data. They won't even have their video on. And like, I mean, yeah, there's all sorts of stuff like that, happening where it's pretty dry. Like it does. And I don't actually believe, this is one thing I think we should give ourselves grace on, is like, there's this concept that like B2B content is boring. And I actually think this is good to just reflect on for a second for YouTube, because we've been talking about that a lot. We don't have to be like funny, and we don't have to be like entertaining in the sense of like a lot of content you might see on YouTube or Netflix or whatever. Like technical topics are not boring to the person you're speaking to if they can learn and get better, which is what they're trying to do. So I think like webinars work. Like people attend them.
Absolutely.
It's just, we just need to make sure that we have a promise and a positioning, and then we deliver on that. And then we contextualize how we distribute it for each platform correctly. But we don't need to do all this. We don't need to like change our personalities and like all of that stuff. But we need to think about how we're going to distribute it prior to actually creating it.
I think, yeah, it's really about like leaning into who you are, or who your host is, and just kind of owning it.
Yeah.
Of like, and I've said this a lot, like I'm not going to be the straight up like funny guy anywhere. Like I'm funny enough, but like it's not like, I'm much more, I have a different vibe to the show. Like anybody who listens, it's like, man, I get told all the time, like after I listen to the show, I feel like motivated, more encouraged, more like that's who I am.
Yes.
Like I'm gonna hopefully, after this, Eric, you're like, cool, that was great talking to Justin. Like I can't wait to go keep jamming on the stuff I'm doing, because that's who I am. If you're a CFO and you're funny, be a funny CFO. like show your quirks. But if you're not, don't feel like you have to force it. Like it is who you are. I think that's the beauty of content marketing today, is like I can love golf, I can love the NFL, and I can listen to the exact show I want with the hosts that I like.
Exactly.
And it's like, and I don't have to, and I certainly won't listen to all of them. And there are other people who are like, I hate that show, I like this show. And I'm like, nah, it's too goofy for me. But like that's the wonderful thing about content. So like, I think for you, like if you're thinking about doing a show or you have one or whatever, and even for your stuff, Eric, like, yeah, like you just be who you are, talk to the audience as authentically as you can, and then ideally you'll find that tribe of people who nods and agrees and is like, yes, I like them.
It's literally the same thing of like, how do you get friends in your real life? It's like, you just be yourself.
Mhm.
You can't like, if you go
Love
around trying
that.
to fake who you are to get friends, like that's gonna crumble at
It's
some
such a
point.
good analogy. Yeah.
And so like, we forget that like a lot of success in content in B2B is based on friendship through the content. People feel like they are friends with you. And the only way to get to create that is to be yourself.
Mhm.
Like, you can't, like, you will not get anywhere you want. I think it's easier than ever now to kind of see people if they're like putting on a fake vibe. It was a little harder 5 years ago, but it's pretty easy now. And I think that is really tough to succeed with long term. So yeah, I think like it's cool, education, entertainment, but it's also friendship,
Mhm.
and being yourself is the way to create that.
I do. I love that analogy of like, because I think ultimately really, really good marketing is that it's like getting known, liked, and trusted amongst those people that you want to know, like, and trust you. All the people I enjoy or want to like shell my money out for are people I know, like, and trust.
Yes.
It's not, and like, and agree with conceptually and be like, yes, like yep, that's it. That's the way I think I want to do things, right? Like, there's going to be a whole host of people who are going to listen to this podcast, or maybe they won't. They'll skip over it because they'll see YouTube in the title because they have no business or desire to ever be on YouTube. Like, they just want to write blogs or they just want to do whatever, and YouTube is not interesting to them. Cool. But for the people who want to get better and maybe want to do YouTube for their B2B company in 2025 and beyond, this is going to be great.
Content is in a lot of ways, it's like a commodity, you know. But it's not when it's like, I can go to a lot of places to learn about a topic. I can go to ChatGPT, I can go to Wikipedia, I can go to 20 other YouTube channels, I can go to podcasts, I can go to a bunch of different LinkedIn profiles. But what you want to find is like, cool, that's all great. I want to hear Justin's opinion on this. Like, that's really what you're looking for, is like, I genuinely want to hear Justin's opinion or thoughts or ideas on this topic. And if you get that, you win.
Yes. Yes. It's like you want, yeah, everybody has somebody in their feed. Pick a channel, an email, whatever, where you see their stuff and you're like, yes, I want to see what they have to say about this thing. And I think the more that you can do, you can lean into that and lean into like your own experiences and what you're learning. That's something I'm trying to get better at this year, is just like the honest reality of where things are at and how things are, how I'm thinking about content, what's working, what's not, what we're trying, what we're not doing. And that's the fun. That's the fun part of it, is just trying to make those connection points. And I mentioned it in a show before, but it's sometimes content is like lonely and discouraging because you're doing a lot. Like, it does take a lot of work to do these types of things, to put on a show, to get guests, to, come up with ideas that you think are valuable and great. And then like, if it's not growing how you want, or if it's, just life being life, things aren't going the way you initially thought, like, it can be really discouraging. And then you get that one email, you get that one DM, you get that one message where it's like, this was super helpful. Thank you. You get that one post on LinkedIn. And it's just like, okay, I guess this is worth it. I guess I just keep I just keep cruising over here.
And treat those like more than one. I
Mm,
always recommend, like, most people don't give feedback. I listen to and like a lot of content creators in B2B and just people I learn from. Very rarely do I message them. It's actually something I should do more, to be honest.
same,
Just be like, dude, great stuff. I
same.
like what you're doing. But I don't, but I think it. So if you get one, this is just a little encouragement and a reminder for myself too. If you get one of those, put a multiplier on it, because that's what's actually happening right now. It's easy to be like, here's my downloads in my dashboard and whatever, but like, um, if you're getting unsolicited positive responses, put a multiplier on that, because that's what's actually happening.
Dang, that's so good. That's so good. Well, cool, man. I think that's a great spot to end on, just in terms of like encouragement for folks as they're creating their content and going out there. Like, it's not always about what's in your dashboard. It's not always about the metrics that you're seeing up and to the right, and that's the only sign of good. Like, this is a journey we're all on, creating content, trying to do the best for our marketing and for our companies. And at the end of the day, like, sometimes those comments are just, the one thing that can keep it going. So, Eric, this is a blast. I love talking about YouTube and seeing what you got going on. And for anybody who's interested, listen to the ad read at the beginning of the show, or just go to hatch.fm and see what Eric and his team are up to, because I'm a huge fan, supporter.
Likewise, man. Appreciate you, Justin. This was fun.
Awesome. See ya.